we got to go win this thing. You know what I mean? Like, I can sit here and say how much Bethpage means to me and New York, and all that's going to matter is when you tee off on Friday morning in how you play in those Ryder Cups and in the matches.
Foreplay presented by Barstool Sports and our great friends at Chevy Chevrolet. Big episode. We've got Captain Keegan Bradley on the show. He's the best, man. He's just the best. Obviously, huge news a month or so ago when he was announced as the captain. We talked about it a ton. If Netflix had an impact, the fact that he's only 38 years old, he's a peer with a lot of these guys. I looked it up. He's 21st in the official world golf rankings. That's 10 spots higher than Justin Thomas. It's almost 20 spots higher than Jordan Spieth. So for him to be kind of the captain at this time is unbelievably rare, just in the way that it went down. Very rare. We have a long history with him. He's been on the show a bunch of times. We've hung out with him in person a bunch of times, and he was an excellent interview. I was excited going in, Dan, and I think our little side group text was even more excited afterwards.
There are certain people who are natural motivators, and I think he's definitely one of them. And, you contrast that with some of the other guys who are maybe, in contention for the pick. And it's no disrespect to those guys, or to be the captain, I should say. It's no disrespect to those guys. The Ryder Cup captaincy for forever was basically a reward for a life well lived in golf, right? You won a major or two. You did the thing where you were an assistant captain. You played along and you got your captaincy. This is clearly a new direction, and there's no better person, I think, to start that new direction than with Keegan. He just the way he talks about his own career is really kind of interesting and amazing and super compelling. He says a couple times in this interview, like, I was such an animal. I was a savage. Like, he just feels things really hard.
Yeah, and he's so intense. Everybody kind of knows that, right? Like the jittery pre-shot routine, how fired up he was when he's playing with Phil Mickelson in Ryder Cup matches, him coming out and winning against Jason Duffner in a playoff PGA, which I believe was his first major he ever played in. So he's just kind of this fiery, very interesting figure in the game of golf. And then anyone in golf is very familiar with his relationship to the Ryder Cup and the fact that played in a couple. He's got a 4-3-0 all-time record. He brought the thunder. He brought the enthusiasm whenever he did play. That was undoubted. Everybody knew that. The last loss, which he discusses this loss, I believe it was at Glen Eagles. He was in the singles match against the guy who hit the winning Ryder Cup shot, shook his hand, hasn't opened his suitcase with all of the Ryder Cup stuff since then. That got highlighted on Netflix. Then the complete devastation when he thought Netflix was coming to film him getting a great phone call saying he made the team. It went the other way. All of that went crazy viral, especially in the golf world. And so for that to culminate in him being named the Ryder Cup captain, it's at Bethpage Black. He's got an insane history with Bethpage, which he goes through. And as he talks about it, it's so visceral. Like you get this visceral experience of him talking about it. He paints the picture. He's so, you can sense kind of the emotion and how real it is in his voice as he talks about it, even with us. And we're not that serious of a show. He's talking about it with us. It gave me the chills a bunch of times, the way that he speaks. And like I said, he's been, I'll never forget when we went up to the Travelers Championship. It must have been 2017, maybe 2016, one of those 2 years. But Jim Renner, had not qualified for the tournament. So Dave Portnoy had turned his sort of focus in terms of the people's golfer to another New England guy, which was Keegan. He was deemed the people's golfer 2.0. And Dave kind of tasked myself and Trent at the time. We had fired up the podcast. We were kind of the golf guys with going up there and leading the charge. There's the cleaners. And then you guys just heard that. I talked about this beforehand. I said the cleaners had a 3-hour window to come. They come at the very last second, obviously, of the window right when we start the podcast. So I'm going to have to go get that in a second. But the whole point was we go up there, we hand out a bunch of T-shirts. We recruit this kind of army of people, dozens of people on a Thursday to follow Keegan around. He finishes his round, and we were all kind of hanging. We didn't really have direct communication with him. I think I was only DMing him here and there. And then like 20 minutes later, he came pushing kind of his way through the crowd to come shake the hand of every person that followed him and had a Keegan versus everybody shirt on. So we got a long history with Keegan and how good of a dude he is. And this interview is just fantastic. I got to go let my cleaners in if you want to say anything else, Dan, about the interview or preface it at all. But he's the captain of the Ryder Cup team. That starts a little bit over a year, and he's on the show for the next 40 minutes. And we're going to do something we don't usually do, which is we're going to throw it to Keegan very early in the show. It's such a good interview that I don't want to bury it at the end. So we're going to kind of put it at the lead.
Yeah, I think you covered it really nicely there. All this being said, I do feel like I have to, not be a buzzkill, but just qualify it as like, he can still be the best captain or the best motivator, and they could still lose, right? It's one of those, it's golf, right? He's not hitting a shot. And he tells you that, it's like when you win, you're the best captain ever. When you lose, you stink. And so despite him being, they're sort of two separate conversations, right? That's one conversation. Him being incredible and awesome and someone that you'd love to play for, they could still lose. It's possible, but he will do everything that he can. And I think we'll let the rest of the interview speak for itself.
Yep, I agree with that. So without further ado, great to have him on. Always great to have him on. He jumped on, I think, after he won a playoff event a couple years ago. So whatever year that was when he won a playoff event, I remember he came on like the very next show and sat down. I think it was just he and I kind of one-on-one for 45 minutes. And he talked about, he always brings the emotion. Like when he won that playoff event, even I remember how emotional he was. When he won the Travelers last year, it was incredible how, emotional he was. And just even going back through, I mean, he's, like I said, 21st in the official world golf rankings. He last year, so like to paint again how like in the mix he is right now, which is different, right? Like a lot of it's usually a ceremonial-ish pick, like someone a little bit kind of at the end. He won the Zozo in the fall of 2022. He finished second at the Farmers last year, so 2023. He won the Travelers last year, 2023, and he finished ninth, top 10 in the Tour Championship at the end of the FedEx Cup last year in 2023. So, like, I know it's 2024, and this year wasn't quite as good as last year, but he's
still at 2 seconds. Still at 2 seconds. Right. He finished second in Hawaii and second at Colonial.
Right. So he's it's very interesting that he's sort of still a key money figure in terms of like competing on any given week on the PGA Tour, and then now in the last month he's also kind of been given this crown that he's got to wear as captain of the U.S. Ryder Cup team and all the drama, controversy that comes with that. It's so dramatic and controversial at times that it led me to cheer for Europe a couple of years ago. So you just never know what you're going to get. And we've got Keegan Bradley. So without further ado, let's throw it to Keegan, who we're just always a big fan of. This episode is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Chevy. Get the crew together, head off to the course in the new 2024 Chevy Traverse. Impressive cargo room, 3-row seating, and the first ever Z71 trim Traverse can help and handle your buddies with their golf bags with ease. And it's not just, and you should go to Chevy.com/Traverse right now. It's not just that this thing is huge and it's got all the cargo room. We know that. And go to that link and look at it. You're going to love it. It's the technology, Dan. On this thing, it's got the 17.7-inch diagonal color touch screen, 3-row SUVs at its top in its class, auto sense power lift gate. So you're just hitting buttons, things are lifting. It's just really elevated the tech game.
Yeah, it's, a lot of times historically you'd have to choose between kind of the muscle car that has space and that has a presence and the technology, and Chevy's removed that choice. You can have both. I kind of have a dream of, have you ever seen like when they make those someone will have basically a golf locker in their trunk?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've got like wood cutouts for like your shoes. I might have to get a Chevy Traverse and make that into a reality, because
really
that would just be
idea.
I think I would really just you're basically asking to get your shit stolen, but it would look cool.
You could just do, I'm sure with the technology, you could do one of those little slide overs where people can't see any of your stuff in the back.
Perfect. Yeah.
Because they've got such great technology. But Traverse, you'd have all the room in the world for that. You could do something you've never been able to do before on the course with the new Traverse. Drive hands-free with available Super Cruise hands-free driver technology. We're talking tech. You don't have to leave anything behind because the redesigned Traverse offers best-in-class max cargo volume. Head over to Chevy.com/traverse to build your own and learn more. Chevrolet, together, let's drive. We're joined right now. We got myself, Dan, and Keegan Bradley, who's got a long history with us with Barstool, People's Golfer 2.0. I think one of the first PGA Tour events I ever went to was the Travelers. We went up there. We gave out T-shirts to a bunch of people that followed you around. We had you on after a couple different wins. We had you on last year, right after the heartbreak of not making the Ryder Cup team. Now, fast forward a year later, Keegan's back, and you are and I don't even know if you can believe this at this point. In fact, you're now the captain of the United States Ryder Cup team.
Pretty wild, man. It's there's this picture in Bears Club in the back of Bears Club in the bathroom where there's a hitting bay that we use, and there's this picture of all the captains, just like a painting of all the captains that I've been looking at, my whole life, and I always go in there and stare at that and think like, gosh, this is so crazy that people get to do this. I've been looking at this painting I've been a member there since 2011. And, I told my wife about, I went there just this week and I'm looking at this painting and thinking like, Jesus, my face is going to be on this. And it's just like, it's just a wild feeling.
I know, you've done a couple interviews since, and the whole way that things rolled out, it was very surprising for guys like us who were sort of media fans. It was so surprising, which you don't get in today's media landscape very often. Things get leaked. I know you kind of talked a little bit about it, but from kind of the second that you found out, ever since then, is there like you're going to be captain orientation? Like, does somebody tell you what you have to do? Like how does it roll out of them like helping you become captain? Really,
there actually is a captain orientation. So they called me Sunday night at Hartford. I had, it's hard to describe the feeling because I truly had no clue. So, imagine that you guys got a call to be the Ryder Cup captain. That it was the same. I couldn't believe it. I think they were expecting this sort of huge reaction from me. And to be honest with you, I was shell shocked. So it was a surreal time. And then I kept it quiet I didn't tell anybody for
Dude, our text conversation
about a week.
is probably my favorite text conversation that I've ever had with anybody ever.
Yeah. Yeah. You texted me and I was like, wait till he figures this out. This will be pretty wild. And then I went to New York for captain orientation and then the rollout of, the press conference and all that.
That's
so
unbelievable.
I wanted to ask you, and we had this interaction. I called into that press conference that you did. I was not in New York, but I asked you, and it's always strange kind of having these conversations in formal settings with guys who I know and have developed a relationship with, and then like talking to them on the side. It's just a little bit of a different conversation. But I asked you in that moment if you thought that Netflix had any role in you getting the captaincy, and you basically said no. They think about this stuff so much, but you have to understand where I was coming from and why people are making that connection.
Yeah, I totally get it. I can't tell you what it's like to be in these team rooms and in the battle of a Ryder Cup. And even when I'm explaining to people what the Ryder Cup is like or what it's like to be captain to my friends who are in the golf world, or even PGA Tour players that haven't been in the room, you have no idea how intense this is. Like, you have no idea how people are so emotional about the chance of playing in the Ryder Cup and the matches the next day, and it's so intense. I can't describe to you how intense it is. A decision over a Netflix TV show, it just wouldn't happen. I appreciate that thought and I get that, but the intensity of this tournament, it's just far outweighs all that.
Yeah, and I think we've of course talked about that. Netflix is one of the few, or it's maybe the most comprehensive look that we've ever gotten into a lot of that day-to-day stuff of being one of you guys, being a professional golfer. This last year's season was obviously a lot about the Ryder Cup, but I do think it's when you look at it from the whole, it's so cool that PGA of America went with someone that's not considered necessarily traditional boys club. There are so many, guys that have kind of been part of that crew that have been assistant captains for a long time. There's nothing in any way wrong with those guys. They didn't do anything wrong whatsoever. But I think that a lot of folks, like in any sport, you're a big sports guy, when you're a fan of your team and they get to a point where your team's getting a little bit older, you want some younger, fresher blood in there and kind of a new era ushered in, rebuilding, whatever you want to call it. Like, we all kind of root for that. And I think that you represent so many awesome things about the Ryder Cup, how fire you are, the whole deal with the backpack and the suitcase, all of it is so representative of what I think a lot of Team USA Ryder Cup fans are very excited about, which is like, yes, like this guy, he's great. And it's not the negative about the other guys, but I think that you, in so many different ways, kind of capture what a lot of us feel like if we were somehow put into a position of being a U.S. Ryder Cupper, of like, we all take it so unimaginably seriously as fans that we want to know this guy that's in there, and all that is just, he's the right guy with the right energy and the right fire. And I just think a lot of people, when they saw that come out, were like, okay, I hadn't really thought of that. Fuck yeah, that's great. Like, let's go.
Well, that's exactly how I felt. I mean, this is such an incredible opportunity. Like, I can't tell you how many nights I'm lying awake at 3 a.m, staring at my wall with thoughts of, pairings or Bethpage, or like that first feeling I had driving into Queens to go to St. John's and just being so overwhelmed with New York City and Jamaica Queens, and then going to play Bethpage for the first time at St. John's. It was shortly after Tiger had just won the US Open there, and just being on the grounds of Bethpage and just in awe. I'd never played a course that had held a major in my life. So like being out there and it looked like a course that would hold a major. Like, there's courses that have the look of a major, and Bethpage has it. And going and hitting the shots, like we went and Tiger hit a really famous, I think he hit 7 or 6 iron into the 4th hole, the par 5, up the hill. I remember on Sunday, he cleared the bunker and then hit it on the green, and we would all go hit that shot every time. And just the magnitude of New York City, it was overwhelming for me. I grew up in Vermont and then Boston. It was insane. And to think, 15, 20 years later, I'd be, leading a United States Ryder Cup team at that course is literally, stuff that you see in movies. And I don't take this lightly. This is really intense. Like, this is an intense moment in my life, for everybody, my family, my wife, my kids. Like, this is the defining moment in my life. And it's heavy. It's really heavy at times.
Well, it's been a heavy last 2 years, because we talked about this, and you've talked about this publicly, where like Netflix, you're a pretty private guy. Like, a lot of times you struggle, you've talked about on our show when we did the caddy thing, you struggle with anxiety. You're not super comfortable necessarily letting people in. So you have 1 year where you're letting all these people in, and then you have this very public heartbreak, and that increased the magnifying glass on you in and of itself. And then you have this on top of it. Was there ever a part of you that wanted to say no? Like, you're 37 years old. You're still in the prime of your career. I don't know what you're ranked in the top 25 in the world. Like, this is not the typical time to take the Ryder Cup captaincy. Was that ever a time of like, maybe it's not the right time?
Well, I certainly had to think about it, because to be perfectly honest with you, I wasn't 100% comfortable with it at first, with just the legends that had been passed over.
Right. Stuart Sink, in the immediate aftermath, was like, he said, like, I wanted to do it. There were guys who wanted it.
And he deserved it. I mean, I think about Justin Leonard. I was at that Ryder Cup in '99 at Brookline, and I told him that moment changed my life. It fully changed. Like, if I always wanted to be a PGA Tour player, and I was motivated, and this is what I wanted to do. But that exact moment when he made that putt, it accelerated everything for me. It was like a moment that I can look back on. I saw him. I watched it. And, he's a legend. That's, probably easily the most famous United States Ryder Cup shot. And, so that was heavy as well. But then I had so much support from the players and the fans. And, so much was made in the Netflix episode of me being an outsider. But I'm friends with these guys too. I'm not,
right.
these guys are proper friends. I've said this a million times. One of my biggest regrets in my career was when I came out on the tour, I was a fucking animal. Like I didn't want any friends.
So sick. I love that.
I would look at the other players and I would make stuff up on my head that these
so
guys
good.
Think you suck.
I do the same thing.
And it was at the time I think I needed it. But now I suffer from it because these guys, they're genuine friends and they really pull for each other. And I think it's such a cool thing because it's a much happier life on the tour. The tour can be very lonely, to be honest. And they really want what's best for the other guys. So they made this big deal into this, boys club and this and that, but they're best friends and they want what's best for each other. And they made it out sort of to be that I wasn't friends with these guys. I'm very friendly with Justin Thomas. I had nothing but, I was pulling so hard. I always am pulling so hard for him just because I see how he prepares. And, I want, it's important that people know that I love these guys. You know what I mean? And it's my own fault. I felt like it was me against the world when I came out. I was a kid that I needed to do this to make money. And like these guys were against me. And, that attitude it can hurt you in the end.
But did it help? Do you think it helped initially? Do you think it helped with getting on tour? And
for sure. I mean, I had a singular goal, and from the moment I graduated St. John's, I worked at Wheatley Hills at a course on Long Island for a summer, played the mini tours, and then I went to the Hooters tour, and I was just an absolute savage. Just like, I got to get to the next level. If I got to hit balls for all day long, that's what I'm going to do. And then I got to the nationwide tour. It's Corn Ferry now. Same thing. Like I hate even saying this, but I would look at the other players as like, I had no interest. I just wanted to beat them. And I'm not even that proud of that, to be honest. And then I got to the tour and it was like, all right, here's my chance to really, make my mark and make a ton of money. This is my first time. Like I made some money on the nationwide tour, but this is like, now I could really go out there and do what I was born to do. And I just had a singular goal. And, I really kind of now later in my career regret that sort of feeling, but maybe that's what I needed to accomplish what I needed to do.
It's also, it reminds me of the way people talk about Nick Faldo. And then, as he got older and his career ended up taking the CBS gig, and Tiger, right? Like people talk about that so much about Tiger. And then later in his life, we've heard during all the different comebacks where people highlight, he's smiling more out there. He's more friendly with the guys. He's more engaging and part of the kind of family network. And it's almost kind of reflective of how a lot of people go through their life trajectory of when you're young,
right?
And, you're trying to make your mark and you're trying to figure out your career, whether it's a professional golfer or media, or even if you're just a teacher, you're a finance bro, whatever. It's like you sort of do get caught up, especially because you look around at that age of like, it feels like a rat race and you want to win it. And you think that like this importance in life is driven by you being successful and more successful than the guy next to you, And then as you kind of get older, I think everybody kind of learns a lot more of like, no, man, like success and happiness in life is like the friends that you make and the people that you spend time with and the family that you're surrounded by. And like getting to a point where you're financially stable and all that is going to help. It's going to make you more confident. But I find that sort of trajectory more and more and more common in the different stories, whether it's sports or whatever it is that I kind of hear. And I feel like you're describing right now someone who went through that trajectory as much as anybody.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, Keegan, Sean Foley, he's full of these little nuggets. Yeah. Something that he said to me one time that really struck with me, because I still have a little bit of that, what you're talking about now. I view there's still part of me that views everyone and it sounds silly because it's, it's media, whatever, but I still view everyone as like, there's a part of me that's competition and like there are a limited amount of opportunities here and I need to get them. And he said, true confidence is not I'm great, he sucks. True confidence is I'm great and so is he. And that's a very different way to look at the world.
I see a lot of that in Barstool. I watched Portnoy. Absolutely. I saw Portnoy at a hockey game this year. And I said, I think you don't need to hear this from me, this is the last person to hear this from, but I can't tell you how proud I am of what you've done. Like watching what, because even back in those days when you guys saw me in Travelers, Barstool was big and it was, so cool and the fan base was huge, but to see where it's come, it's so incredible. And I watching a New England kid like Portnoy do that, it's cool. And I'm sure he's got that same story because he's a savage. And then, I think everybody has to have that in them to be really successful.
Yeah, I think so too. And he's a little softer now with Miss Peaches, but he's still a savage. There's still that savage in there, which I think is good. And you're right. It was drives him. I think he's kind of said that Barstool's the empire built on spite. And it's like the more moments that he went through where he was spiteful against others and he found ways to fire himself up, that's what kind of drove it and drove it and drove it.
I love that so much. I just love it.
Yeah. And that's great, right? Everybody's got to have a little dog in them. I think that's healthy. I think it's good for people to strive towards stuff and find reasons to be motivated. But it is cool to kind of hear as you get older and more successfully kind of define the happiness in your life by like, no, I've got more of a network. I'm happier out on tour. It's a better life on tour, having more friends and us even having now been to quite a few different tournaments. You think of the PGA Tour as this incredibly glamorous, you're at the peak of the peak existence. And there's definitely times where it is. But on any given week, on a Monday and on a Tuesday, your guys are out there and it is hot and it's a practice round and you're getting through it. You haven't seen your family in a couple weeks. You haven't been home in a long time. All your kind of buddies are living a little bit more of a normal life. They're getting beers and watching football together every week. And like you're out here doing it. And it's like, I know that sounds weird to say, but I've been out there, not even as a player, as a part of it on a random Tuesday. I've been like, man, this is a fucking grind out here. Like this,
dude. I did 2 years of like properly traveling on the PGA Tour. Like when I was first getting my start with Golf Digest, where I did like 22, 23 weeks, full weeks, and I'd get there on Sunday and go back on the following, Monday. It's the same. It's a traveling circus. It's the same people. It's just a new hot city.
It's so brutal, man. It's so great. It's so great. But that I always tell people like my purgatory would be, for me, when I'm like on the road for a long time, it's the warm up. It's just like, so it's just tedious. But it would be playing like a major practice round because they're 6.5 hours long. Yeah. Everyone's hitting 10,000 chips. So my purgatory would be like a U.S. Open, 18 holes on Tuesday. Tee off at 10 when everyone's teeing off, and they finish at dark.
Yeah. Yep. And it's June. It's 100 degrees. It's hard. Yes. Every shot's impossible.
Yeah. You play the course. You're like, I don't know how I'm going to make a par on this course. Forget about win the tournament. Like, that's just how it is.
Get ready for the season with the official sunglasses brand of Barstool Sports, Shady Rays. How do I look right now there, Dan Rappaport?
Stunning. And you know what's more important? You look protected. Golf is, you spend a lot of time in the sun. We all protect you wear a hat, you wear sunscreen. The sunglasses are the next piece. You hear all these stories about these guys who have to get surgeries at such a young age. It's now like no longer, it's not a weird thing. Like you get used to it in one round and then it becomes part of your routine. You're going to feel, your eyes will feel less fatigued. Frankie was talking about on the show recently that like when he doesn't wear sunglasses, he sees those you see the stars.
Or the little stars. Sun's dangerous. I famously have tweeted about that before. Very dangerous, bad for your eyes. You're squinting out there too, so it's like exhausting. No. You got to have shades out there, and we're talking Shady Rays. They're kicking off their most anticipated release of 2024 with a limited edition debut of their rival collection, new single lens style Barstool Blue with a premium stool and stars lens etch. And if you're looking for something more casual, the classics are also getting the Barstool treatment. Both of these styles are perfect for all day, everyday comfort and performance. I love these that I've been rocking too because you can still see. In fact, you can see the golf course and the golf ball better. I think some people worry about sunglasses over golf shots because it's going to change your depth perception or what you usually see. The ones that I'm rocking right now, they literally make me see the golf course and the golf ball better. If you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return them worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk with Shady Rays. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. Head to shadyrays.com. Use our code Fore for 35% off polarized sunglasses. That's great. 35% off code is FORE. Try for yourself. The Shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. ShadyRays.com. The code is Fore.
I wanted to ask you something you said in the presser. I watched it back. You said that you didn't care where the guys were going to play from. You wanted the best 12 Americans. And you said you were actually considering less captain's picks. So for that to be the case, to ensure that you're going to have the best players and you're going to have less captain's picks, does that mean you're going to include the live events in some capacity?
Well, I just think like you do 6 and 6 is the way it's done now. If you finish 7th or 8th on the list, like you should be on the team. But I guess then I came to the realization of, well, you're still like, if I'm in charge of choosing the team, if I think 7 and 8 should be on the team, then I could just do that. So there's no real point in changing it. But I'm under the firm belief that I want the best players on the team. And next year at this time, who knows what we're looking at here in terms of Live, PGA Tour. I'm in no private conversations. I know nothing. As a matter of fact, I hear a rumor like, a month ago, and then I hear a rumor yesterday, and it's literally the exact opposite.
It's 180.
It couldn't be more opposite of what I heard. So like, I'm done with trying to figure this out. And I think I owe it to the team to have the best players on the team. Now that could mean Live players, could mean it doesn't. It's going to depend on who's ready to go. And who I know that there's guys on the Live that are motivated to win the Ryder Cup. I don't know how that's going to shake out. I just want the best 12 players.
You had any, like you started getting just random text messages from American-born professional golfers that are, oh, Keegan, you look really cute on Golf Channel.
To be honest with you, it's been really, really fun for me this year to have all the guys come up and tell me how excited they are to have me captain, because my first thought was I was a little bit nervous. I didn't know what the reaction was going to be. And, it really means a lot. In any business, whatever you do, what your peers think, it's really all that matters. You know what I mean? Like, you may think you're a good player or a good writer, but if a well-respected sports writer comes up to you guys and says, you guys are doing a great job, that means more to you than anything, Yeah. And so I look forward, I couldn't believe the reaction I was getting, and I appreciated it from the guys. And, it just brings you back to how big of a job this is and how important this is. And, I feel like I owe it to everybody involved to give it my best and to just do what's best for the team always.
The Europeans are already crying a little bit, or they were, about Bethpage and about how the fans are going to be. Obviously, the New York fans are a different breed, and I think throwing you into that equation, you're one of the more demonstrative players out there. You're a young guy. I know you're a Boston guy, but you also have the New York ties, and you played Bethpage in college. All of this, there's going to be a lot of fire and a lot of passion that week. Are you excited? Is there a part of you that's a little concerned? Are you going to have to say a message like this needs to sort of stay within the boundaries, or are you just going to let things go?
No, I don't feel like I need to say any of that. I think that the New York fans are incredible fans. They're going to be passionate. They're going to be loud. They're going to be crazy. I mean, just like any Ryder Cup you go to, any away Ryder Cup you go to, they're going to be loud and they're going to cheer for their home team. And it's going to be tough to play there if you're not an American. I don't know what else to say.
That's what we want. That's what we want. That's what we should want.
I expect them to behave appropriately. I mean, I can't control how they react, but they're going to be fired up. Let me tell you, I drove the course on the Wednesday after the media announcement, and I had this was the realest moment for me when I got to the course. I had my captain's cart with my name on it and the Ryder Cup, and it was red, and it was intense. And I drove the course, and they talk you through the course setup and where the grandstands are going to be. And the course was packed with people, like every hole had 3 groups on it. And these people were going effing bananas when I was driving by. And these are just regular people out playing around, and they're screaming across, they're chanting there. Even I was surprised at the amount of enthusiasm that they were bringing. So you multiply that by, 10,000 people on the first tee. going to be a tough place to play. Just like going into Madison Square Garden's tough for the Celtics to go play the Knicks. It's a tough place to play.
Yeah, I remember. I want to say you could probably go back and pull it. Like we might have done a podcast 5 years ago where we talked about the Ryder Cup at Bethpage is gonna be insane. Like we circled
I think
that.
it's got the potential to be one of the greatest sporting events of all time.
Yeah.
Forget about the outcome. I'm just talking about like this has got an opportunity. I mean, you're playing golf's biggest event, basically on golf's biggest stage in New York. I think anybody that's played Bethpage in a tournament, forget about the Ryder Cup, knows like how wild and crazy it is then. So, I mean, I think it's going to be great for golf. I think it's going to be ridiculously good for the Ryder Cup. And, I really obviously expect the fans to behave appropriately, but like I can't be out there scolding people.
Hey, can you guys be quiet over there? You guys are making a little noise.
Quiet down over here. Yeah. Quiet down, guys. Come on.
And that never goes over well when you do that anyways. So especially in New York.
No. I do want to talk a little bit about Bethpage as a golf course. We've seen it for major championships, seen it for some big events. I've been out there and said many times, it's a parkland course that's got no views. It's got no like insane Oakmont this or that. And I think it's a top 10 golf course I've ever played. It's just phenomenal start to finish. Every hole is so cool. I think the fourth hole is one of the best par fives on planet Earth. For the Ryder Cup, there's always a lot of chatter about the home team. The home team gets to set the course setup, a lot of the conditions, that type of stuff. Where are you at already with sort of having in your head how you want this place to play for next fall's Ryder Cup?
So a couple things about Bethpage. A telltale sign of how good the course is they're not changing any of the routing of the golf course. So 1 through 18 is going to be the same as we always play it. That never happens. So I think that's cool. That's
amazing.
Bethpage is a real public golf course. Like you talk about Pebble Beach and some of these courses, it's $1,000 to play. Like local New Yorkers play it $50. And I've found that when I was at St. John's, New York, and I worked at Wheatley Hills on Long Island, people from New York, this is their home course. Now they may be members at Wingfoot, Shinnecock, you name the course, the National, whatever. Quaker Ridge, which is amazing. They talk about Bethpage in a different level of love. Like they just have such pride in this place because it's public, and they went there and slept in the car with their dad, and they put the ball in the little thing that goes down. And like, this is a really special place to New Yorkers. Over some of the most prestigious clubs in the world, in my opinion. I've heard some billionaires talk about Bethpage in a different light than they talk about Shinnecock. So like that gives you a perspective of what the locals think of this place. Also, there's other incredible. We used to play our home course at the Red, which is next door. If the Black wasn't next to the Red would be a famous golf course. It's so good.
Yeah, the 18th hole in the Red might be one of the best holes on the entire property out of all 5 golf courses.
It's
fantastic,
spectacular. So, as in terms of the course setup, the teams used to have a lot more say. I remember at Medina, we were picking out how far the par threes were going to be, and like we knew that day, okay, this hole's this. They've since changed that. So like I could drive around the course and have a little say now, but there's a date. It's like 2 months before, or maybe even more before the tournament. Then we're shut off. Like I can't pick the pins. I can't pick the tees.
But we had not Francesco. Eduardo. We had Eduardo Molinari on the show right after the Ryder Cup, and he was basically bragging to us about how he said the Americans all slice it, which I'll never forget. He said slice. He didn't say cut it. He said the Americans all slice it off the first, and they all like to hit drivers. So we want a hole where they have to hit 3 wood drawn off the first tee. And then he was like, and we won that hole 16 times, and they won it 5 times. So there's none of that goes on. Was he just kind of
maybe there is
gray area of the law?
I can't. we're going to have to wait and find out. I'm surprised he said that, but
You remember that, Riggs? I'm not making that up.
I
No,
remember.
he
No,
did.
I remember. There's a stat about that first hole, those first couple holes in Rome that really got him. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
He was.
We'll see. We'll see.
I don't remember all details, but you're right, Dan. He was something to the point. He was like, if you miss in the right rough, you're going to make par or birdie, whatever percentage less of the time, and winning the first hole leads to like 65% of the time you get a point or a half. They've done all the data, blah blah blah. So our whole point is that it came off to us like, we almost did a whole show afterwards being like, I think they have too much say. Like it should be, it should more be a neutral party that kind of puts the course out. Yes, you have home, field advantage in the sense that you've got the fans, and we already talked about Bethpage and New Yorkers, and it's going to be iconic. But we kind of did this whole show, so that would almost be, even though we're USA, almost be better news, I think, for the future of the whole Ryder Cup. Is like, it shouldn't be where the home team gets to necessarily pick hole by hole, like make the left rough more thick than the right rough over and over again because we have this data advantage. Like we were just kind of saying that we thought that was getting a little too involved, where it's like you should present a pretty neutral course and just see who the better team is that way. You know what I'm saying?
I agree, and that stuff always sounds really nice when you win. I mean, I think I don't know, who knows how much of that stuff is going on. I've never been a captain, so I still am learning as I go here, and we're still a year and a half away from the Ryder Cup with a winter in between at Bethpage. So, like, there's not much. Like, I drove around the course, and like, there's not much I could do.
It's not a year and a half away. It's a year away.
A year away. Yeah, it was a year and 4 months when I was there, 3 months, and so maybe next year when we get closer to the tournament. But for now, we're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I would be remiss if I did not mention this. Brendan Jones has been hammering me that we want to do a scramble against you. I'll caddy for you against these three guys.
Perfect.
We'll come down to Florida.
Yeah,
Perfect.
We've got a pretty good record overall. We got beat by Max Homa after we were up 4 on the front 9. Trent was holing out. It was amazing. He came back and beat us in a playoff, and then we got pretty dusted by Sam Burns, but we've had some big wins. We beat Kiz, who I know is a fellow assistant captain with you with the President's Cup. We beat Billy Horschel. We beat Adam Scott. We beat quite a few people. We beat Wyndham. We beat Joel Damon.
You're pretty good, right? You're like a legit scratch.
Yeah, so
I haven't played.
So this is.
So
you don't play. Okay.
We kind of can't. We're almost like a scratch team with a scratch player with 3 other players is almost like it's a little ridiculous. So Frankie's our best player at this point. He's like a 4 or something like that. I'm a little bit worse than that. Trent's just breaking 90, but he's playing better than he's ever played before. And so we kind of piece stuff together in terms of our game. But the whole point is we would kill to get out, especially if we could do it at Bethpage at some point. Film one of our scramble matches. They do incredibly well in terms of views. And we want to test you out there. We get your USA gear on. We want to get going.
That USA gear is fun to put on, man. Like I hadn't put it on in a decade.
I wanted to ask you one more thing. I'm sorry, I know we kept you a little long here. The Olympics.
No, you're good. I have plenty of time.
Olympics was incredible. We were talking about this last show. The passion these guys showed, and finally everyone playing, and the leaderboard and the golf course, it all just combined. But I got to think that was probably pretty cool for you to see that as like the next Ryder Cup captain, and seeing how much these guys are willing to sort of put into a tournament that doesn't pay anything, that is really all just about representing your country.
It's just so intense, man. It really is. Like did you see Xander's quote after Scotty won? He said something like, I'm going to screw up his quote, but he said, "I'm disappointed with how I played today, but as an American, it's so great to see another American win the gold medal." And it was like, oh, that's just like perfect,
right? Because you're not feeling that way at the Masters.
These guys, like the Americans, always get this that they don't care about they don't care as much, and it's such BS. Like when I was on these teams, I had always heard that Phil and Tiger, they don't care about the Ryder Cup. I have never seen 2 people in all of my years on any teams care about the Ryder Cup or President's Cup more than Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods, especially Tiger. And so, like, these guys, they really like the team. The biggest misconception about the U.S. team is that they're so far off and they got to pick a captain and redo everything like me, and it's way out of the box. They Ryder Cup ago, they set a record for, they won 20.5 to 9.5. This team is really, really good. So like the passion that these guys have for the Ryder Cup is real. And I was a part at Glen Eagles of an ass beating, and it is different, man. It's a jarring experience. So like these guys are going to be hungry to come back and win this thing.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, that's full circle. You were there for the Ryder Cup winning shot. I'll never forget that moment and being how devastated we were. I can't imagine how devastated you are. And now full circle, we're hearing, the captain Keegan talking all about Bethpage and how much it means to New York and to Americans and to these golfers. So I'm really jacked up. I can't believe it's still over a year out after this. I got the chills like 3 times during this conversation. So I wish we could just start this thing right now. But I think you're just an incredible guy for the gig. Not that it really matters what I think or say, but a lot of people were pumped up about it. All my group texts, which we kind of use as the barometer on this show for a lot of how well things are being received or not. All my group texts, which are all pretty much golf buddies, we're all fired up. They're all sending the tweet. They're being like, is this real, Keegan? Let's go. So a lot of people are jacked up, and I know the intensity is there with the golfers and with the team, but it's there with all the fans too. So I think it's going to be amazing. I think you're going to have an incredible, next 14 months or so. But congratulations. We appreciate you doing the show. You've always been great with us, and it's cool to see a guy that we've had a relationship with for many, many years get such a cool role. And you're going to be such a focal key figure in the world of golf for the next year plus. So it's very cool for us, and you're the man. We very much appreciate your time.
Thank you, boys. All I can say is that I'm going to give this everything I ask for the next year. I'm living and breathing this.
These other guys, we're going to beat those other guys
yes.
in that scramble.
And that's the key. Yeah. That's the key. Is like we got to go win this fucking thing. You know what I mean? Like I can sit here and say how much Bethpage means to me and New York, and all that's going to matter is when you tee off on Friday morning and how you play in those Ryder Cups in the matches. Like these guys are going to want to go out, and the fans are going to be intense to play in front of for the U.S. side as well. So like we need to be ready for what's coming, and these guys are so fired up to do this, and I'm excited to get inside the locker room with the guys at the President's Cup and see how that is too. So I just can't wait. I'm honored to do this, and I'm excited.
Unreal, Keegan. I can't wait either. It's going to be great. Thank you as always. And I'm sure we'll be in touch. We got to set up this match because you've officially accepted our challenge for our scramble. So We're going to set that bad boy up, and we'll be in touch. But thanks again, and congratulations.
Thank you, boys.
Most Americans think they spend about $62 per month on subscriptions, but get this. The real number is closer to, what would you guess, Dan Rappaport?
What does the average American think it is?
62.
Yeah, it's got to be closer to like $100.
The real number is closer to $300.
Those things just pile up, and like you have the $6.99 charge in your card, and you're like, man, is it really worth canceling? It puts it all in one spot.
Deals with it all. We're talking Rocket Money, who this app is excellent. It combs through. It's a personal finance app, and it combs through, finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, which is huge, and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. Thousands of dollars a year, half of which we've probably forgotten about. With Rocket Money, you have full control over your subscriptions and a clear view of your expenses. You can see all your subscriptions in one place, and if you see something you don't want, Rocket Money can help you cancel it within just a few quick taps. Rocket Money has over 5 million users. I'm one of them, and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving memberships up to $740. Saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/Fore. That's rocketmoney.com/Fore. rocketmoney.com/Fore. All right, Dan. There he is. There's our leader. There's our captain, our American captain for the next, whatever it is, 14 months. If you just listen to that, I think you got to feel pretty damn juiced up about the leadership of the United States Ryder Cup team.
It's funny because I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but the contrast between him and Luke Donald is so stark. Luke is like very even keeled as a leader. It seems, he's not gonna light a room on fire. He hires a lot of guys who he feels like their stats, which I thought was really interesting what he was saying about the stats, which we'll get into. He hires a stats guy. He sort of puts the pieces in place and lets the guy, where I feel like Keegan is going to be the one delivering some, Bob Knight speeches in there. So it's just going to be and also Keegan's like 6'5" and Luke Donald's like 5'2". So it's going to be a very interesting contrast.
Steve Stricker is a very good example of his captaincy at Whistling Straits, Wisconsin, was so understated. And I think going into the actual event, I really don't think that the general kind of belief in the captain was that different than the general belief in Zach Johnson going in to last year's. Both like relatively quiet guys, cut from a similar cloth of like they'd been part of the assistant captaincies around the teams for a long time, both Midwestern guys, and again, both kind of quiet, not rah-rah guys. And you worried a little bit going in. And by all accounts, especially, we read Shane Ryan's book, Steve Stricker will go down as one of the great Ryder Cup captains, US or Europe, in history. He obviously delivered great results. Players have to hit the shots, of course. But if you saw the way that those guys talked about Steve Stricker afterwards in the interviews for the weeks and months afterwards, even now, and you saw how emotional Steve Stricker was and how he even revealed, which he's been an emotional guy forever, which I love. I get that. We're both Midwestern guys. But if you look at how seriously he took that role and how incredibly good at it he was, and then you look at sort of how I think a lot of people view the way that it went with Zach Johnson, and again, the players have to hit the shots, but it's interesting for me to think that like the two of them a week before the Ryder Cup, I think were perceived pretty similarly as captains. And then after the Ryder Cup, they're perceived very differently. Keegan going in is perceived wildly different than both of those guys. He is a rah-rah guy. He does wear his heart on his sleeve. He is loud and intense. In that interview right there, he said the word intense probably more than he said any other word, which I loved. And he just kept being like, it is intense. And that's a guy who his second shot on Thursday when there's 4 people in the crowd is intense. He's just an intense guy. So for him to be like, no, you don't understand. The Ryder Cup is crazy intense. That got me so juiced up. Him talking about, saying, look, unless you've been in the team rooms, you have no concept of how unimaginably intense it is so cool, because you want to believe that your players aren't going back into the team room and they're like, we lost 3 down, and just checking their phone and seeing what's going on Instagram. Like, you don't want that to be the case, but you're worried, you're not quite sure. And to hear him describe like, no, Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods take this thing more seriously than anyone on earth, and they get ridiculed for being guys that didn't take it seriously because of money and whatever. And just hearing it from that guy who's now the leader, it was fucking awesome to hear that from him.
I'm very worried about the future of the President's Cup. That's been one of my takeaways from the last couple of weeks. President's Cup starts in like 46 days. I get an email from PGA Tour about a media session with Jim Furyk every other week, and I just can't bring myself.
One of my great pet peeves is that I've gotten my way onto just the media PR general list. So I get, I'm sure what you get, but I get a PR update. I mean, every time pretty much anybody, I think, makes a birdie on the LPGA Tour, I get like a press release email about it. And I get these, oh man, about everything that's ever happened. And I don't think I've opened a single one of them. But anyways, go on.
No, I mean, you're right. They're most of the time they're useless. If we want, we're in a position where if we want to have someone on the show, we'll just fucking ask them. But the President's Cup is just, between the Ryder Cup dominating the team competition space and now the Olympics, another sort of opportunity for these guys to represent their country in a different way, and and having a hard no live guys stance, which the Ryder Cup doesn't have. Ryder Cup has had live guys. Actually, I don't know if there's any that will play it, but John Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton are going to be on that team, so they're going to have live guys in the future. And I don't think they did last year. And Bryson's going to be on the U.S. team more than likely, and Brooks. President's Cup. I don't know how. And also the U.S. has won, I think, 15 of 16 or something crazy. How the fuck are they going to make that event sing? It's at Quail Hollow, or no, sorry, it's at Royal Montreal, which is cool. It was at Quail Hollow last time. But I mean, Montreal's a cool city. I'm excited to go. It's not Bethpage Black. It's not Royal Melbourne. It's like, why are they not letting the live guys play? Why? I don't know that it would actually make that big a difference. I know that, but
but it's like they're not going to do that.
But like, this was the other thing too, with like Bryson wanted to play in the Creator Classic. Why? It's so rules. The President's Cup is just, it would be such a cool thing if they just said, you know what, in the spirit of we're trying to bring this whole thing together, this is not a PGA Tour event. It doesn't count for FedEx Cup. There's no prize money at stake. You guys can play. It would add so much juice to the event, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would. I think, I think that the President's Cup gets unnecessarily shit on. And I think a part of that is because it is PGA Tour sanctioned. I think that people it's backed, it's everything PGA Tour. I think that the media is sort of the first line of narratives about it, and I think that the media in general is anti-PGA Tour. Just like it's not
competitive. Historically, it's not competitive.
I think that's the first layer, and then that layer is what articles and what gets reported about it, or how little it gets reported about, is what seeps out, and then that gets consumed by the fans. And by the time it kind of gets to the fans, it has instantly been watered down, because I do think the media has an axe to grind with the tour, which a lot of that is justified at times. Sometimes it isn't. And then it's not particularly competitive year to year. I think that the cohesiveness of the President's Cup team, which is getting better, by the way, has been very much hindered by the different international cultures. There's language barriers. There's just barriers in general. It's not like they have this bond that Europeans have. And I think if you do look at the history of the Ryder Cup, like as Shane Ryan writes, I can't recommend that book enough. That wasn't always the case in the Ryder Cup either. I mean, there were many years in the first 20, 25 years of the Ryder Cup where people were like, this is kind of done. Like this never caught on. This never was the thing. And they had to tweak it. They had to make it multiple, countries. Then they had to make it all of Europe. And eventually they kind of formed this cohesiveness where guys from Spain were boys with guys from England, where that wasn't necessarily the case. And that took a while. I credit Ernie Els and our guy Trevor Immelman, who kind of came up with the rebranding. And now they've got this like Knight's Shield that's like the black and the gold of President's Cup, because they try to create this cohesiveness of it. They're not, every country in the world other than the US and Europe. They're like one international kind of team, and they try to do more dinners and stuff. And that takes time. And I remember being at Royal Melbourne in 2019. It was fucking awesome. It was absolutely awesome. And it had the juice. But like you kind of said earlier, I think it had the juice because it had everything that it could possibly have had to get to the closest juice it could have, which is it was competitive that year. The U.S. was losing and nearly lost it without like a heroic singles finish, without Tiger and JT kind of closing strong in a couple of those team matches on Thursday. JT or Tiger jumping in like each other's arms, that kind of stuff kept it close and energetic. And then the Patrick Reed stuff, right? Like that was used as absolute fuel and fire, so that then you had these Australian sports fans who are some of the best sports fans in the world, who are always hungry and chomping at the bit for anything to go crazy about. They're betting on U.S. basketball at fucking noon over there. Like they're nuts about it. And then you give them Tiger Woods and Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas are the enemy that are kind of friends with Patrick Reed. And it festered into this like this contentious environment where Patrick Reed's caddy, who's a friend of the program, Kessler, who's great, was like punching fans and he got kicked out of the final rank. It had so much juice. Royal Melbourne is considered, outside of Augusta National, like maybe the best golf course in the world. It's Alistair McKenzie. And so it had sort of everything, and it was phenomenal. And I just think on a year by year, every other year basis, whatever you want to call it, it's very rarely going to have all of that. When they do it at like Quail Hollow, and credit to Trevor Immelman, he's as much of a great leader and one of the coolest names in the game is going to be for a long, long time with his now role in broadcasting. Did the best that he could, but like they didn't have live players a couple of years ago. The U.S. came out and it was decently close at times, but like pretty much trounced them, and it didn't have the juice, as they say. And I think for the next decade at least, like there's going to be off years where it struggles to have the juice. Now, I will say that like Canada's got great golf fans.
I was going to say like the fans are. It's going to on site. It's going to feel massive because they don't get tournaments like this.
And going to the Canadian Open this year, I think I talked about this after I went up there for a couple rounds to support Alistair, and like the amount of pride that they have in just Canadian golf. Like people were just wearing like Golf Canada hats, right? Like they're just like, yeah, we love that people are golf. That people that are golf fans came up to Canada to like see our golf. They're just like so jacked up about that. And so I do think there will be an enormous pride factor from the Canadians. And there's, as a hockey guy, like there's long bad blood between like Canadian fans, sports fans, and American sports fans. I don't think it's as contentious in the world of golf. Like the Canadian golfers are the nicest guys in the world, and like we kind of root for them over here, and like Mike Weir and like and Nick Taylor when he won, and like
they all play together. They play every practice round together, and they're all sponsored by RBC. And I posted a it's always like legitimately always Nick Taylor, Mackenzie Hughes, Corey Connors, and Adam Hadwin, like every week. And I posted a picture of this when they were at the Open. They were all wearing the exact same navy blue sweater with the RBC Canada on their left sleeve. They're such nice guys. I feel bad because Nick Taylor is really he was started off the year so hot. He has not played well this year. I think he's missed he's missed the cut in majors 8 times in a row, and he's dropped all the way to number 10 in the standings. He'll probably still make it, but there was some talk about there being like 4 or 5 Canadians on the team: Nick Taylor, Adam Hadwin, Pendrith, Mackenzie Hughes. They're all pretty much on the bubble.
And that's, they're going to need to get on that team. They're going to need to at least have some kind of presence. You have to. But I also think, like I said, I think it gets a little underappreciated because of media, because of other stuff. Like if you remember, dude, when Max Homa was making those putts to beat Tom Kim and like going crazy fist pumping at Quail Hollow, that ignited the golf world. Like we were going crazy for that clip of Max just fist pumping on the final green at Quail Hollow, and like Tom Kim hitting that 2-iron in there close and like making birdie. Like there were huge moments. Spieth and JT like couldn't lose. Cantlay and Xander like couldn't lose, and they were these fiery like U.S. teams. And I remember they made that 18th hole at Quail Hollow was whatever, like the 14th or 15th hole with the water all down the left, and like guys were chipping in from left hill, and it was sick. It was awesome. It was really fun in the moment. I don't think the buildup gets taken as seriously. I don't think the results get scrutinized as seriously because it's probably so one-sided and we're kind of expected to win and then we just win. There was the time at Liberty National in 2017, I think it was, when like it was pretty much over on Saturday and Daniel Berger was like, yeah, I hope we beat him even worse tomorrow. And like that just doesn't have a ton of juice. Like that they were trying to fire up some juice. But I do think it's more fun in the week of and more fiery the week of than we think of it the rest of the 2 years. But it'll always be little brother to the Ryder Cup. I think everybody knows that.
It definitely, it's better than like, listen, it's better than not having a President's Cup. I'm not saying we should just get rid of it. I just think they could really add some buzz by just allowing the live guys to play.
Crazy.
Yeah, I'm looking at the one from last year. It was 8-2 after Friday. It was like, okay, this is over.
I know they did charge back a little bit, but you're right.
A little.
It's like it is.
But so many people probably checked out after that. They were probably just like, okay, this is over.
Yeah, it's hard to get attention and convince the fans that it's close and that you should watch when you're like, all right, these guys have won whatever 14 out of 15 of them, and now they're just winning again. That's not that exciting. But think who they would have, like Cam Smith, Abe Answer, like Joaquin
Neiman.
Neiman, like these guys that are big names that were a huge part.
Oosthuizen.
Louis Oosthuizen, like that were a big part of the last couple, or the President's Cup in 2019, where it was so close. Mark Leishman, I mean, he was a huge part of that. And yeah,
surgery.
Those guys just won't be in there. Golf Zone, world's biggest simulator brand with facilities in 63 different countries. Speaking of facilities, we've got a Golf Zone simulator in the Chicago HQ office. It has gotten more attention than maybe anything in that office, from Jersey Jerry, the hole-in-one challenge, just event after event that's gone crazy from that office. People were having a great time. People actually get in trouble during the day because they just go play golf on the simulator, the Golf Zone simulator, because it's that much fun. This thing's fantastic, Dan.
Yeah, I actually haven't been to that office yet, but I'm gonna have to go soon. But
Is that right?
just having a golf simulator is just sort of the peak of being a golf nerd, especially if you live in a state rather where you can't play outside for 4 or 5 months a year. It's obviously an investment, but it's a worthy investment. I'll tell you, I put some little chipping area in my backyard. Not obviously the same thing, but it's the first thing that everyone wants to do. If you put one of these in your house, you have a party. It's going to be the most popular thing at the party.
Over 7.5 billion shots hit every year, 90 million rounds played last year, 4.8 million members, 230 plus courses are available. Golf Zone does all the course mapping and flies a drone to map the hills and the floor moves to make the hills, making golf simulators with moving floors since 2002. Visit golfzonegolf.com. That's golfzone, golfzone.com. golfzonegolf.com to find a Golf Zone location near you. Speaking of surgery, Jordan Spieth apparently going to potentially have wrist surgery at the end of the year.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, he withdrew from I don't know if it was 1 or 2. I don't know if he withdrew or just didn't play. But it's been bothering him this whole year. And he gave a pretty revealing interview at Wyndham where he said, it's been a frustrating year because I feel like I've driven it maybe the best I ever have. Spieth has been hitting it long, really long, the last 2 years, but especially this year. He's added a ton of speed. But he was saying the shots where the club interacts with the turf the most, he said he doesn't feel it. It doesn't really hurt. He'll once every couple of weeks he'll do something that hurts it, but he says it's not hurting, but it's hard to look at the numbers and see how far he's dropped in approach play and wedge play and not make the connection that okay, something's wrong with my wrist here. So, in addition to having multiple kids and, being 30 years old now and he kind of made a resurgence a couple of years ago. It hasn't really been great this year. It's another obstacle for him to get back to the top of the game.
When I saw that, I did a little bit of research just because I think that Spieth, Justin Thomas, and Rory McIlroy, Spieth and Thomas are in a different boat kind of, but they're all very interesting.
Not that different.
They're all very interesting to me in that they came out red hot. And I think that in sports, especially in golf, when we were kind of growing up and fans of the game, it was commonly known that your late 20s, early 30s were the prime of your career. Your first 5-6 years out there, if you went to college or, once you're 21, 22, you turn pro and you're kind of learning, right? Like you're learning the courses, you're learning the ropes, you're learning what it's like to be a tour player. You definitely have some success. You're young and fiery, but once you get the hang of it and you dial it in and it's more about hitting fairways, you got to learn to, whatever, that your peak is in that 27 to 34-year-old stretch. These guys came out red hot. And when I looked through it, the Jordan Spieth case in 2015, he won back-to-back majors. He was in the third major of the year at the time at St. Andrews. If he goes par birdie on 17 and 18, he not only gets into that playoff, he wins that event outright, which is what Cam Smith did to win the event 2 years ago. Instead, he goes
he bogeyed the road hole.
He bogeyed the road hole after making a bomb on 16 for birdie that everyone was like, he's doing the Spieth thing. Bogeyed the road hole and then didn't birdie the 72nd hole, so he missed out on that playoff by one. He would have been going into Whistling Straits with a chance to win for the first time in history the Grand Slam in one calendar year. He ended up finishing second to Jason Day. They had the whole moment with the thumbs up on that brutal 17th hole, but that's how good of a year he had that year. 2 years later, he wins that crazy British Open with Matt Kuchar on the 13th or 14th hole. He literally hits it off the plan. It takes the drop, makes bogey the whole thing, and then goes like birdie, eagle, birdie, and crazy finish. Since that, which was, by the way, we give Rory a lot of trouble for it being like a decade now. That was like 7+ years ago. Like at this point, it's 2024. That was 2017. He's won 2 times on the PGA Tour since then in 7 years. He's got 2 wins. I think it was 2021 Valero Texas Open, and then 2022 he won the RBC
Texas
Heritage
again. Oh no, he won the
RBC Heritage, which is after he missed the cut at the Masters. But like for me, it's nuts that like you come out that red hot and then really, really, really cool off. You mentioned on the last show, like golf's not linear. It's not like I was thinking about it with like Connor McDavid or with Patrick Mahomes. Like they're just pretty much the best
even
player
LeBron.
every year.
LeBron for his whole prime is going to be 28-8. Like no matter what,
they're just the best player every year, like forever, and that's it. Whereas any given week, every given stretch, golf's different. I get that. But then I was looking at Justin Thomas, which is like, dude, Justin Thomas came out. He had a pretty good start, but then 2017, he had a year in golf that is a Hall of Fame year in 1 year. He won, I believe, 5 times that year. He shot 63 in the U.S. Open at Erin Hills. He shot 59 at Sony, and he won a major championship, and he won the FedEx Cup. So like that year alone was insane, like 2017, how good that was. And he's obviously won a major championship since, and he's won a Players' Championship. So it's not like he's completely disappeared, but he's 31st in the world golf rankings right now. He's got the 2 wins at the Players in the PGA since, but he didn't make the playoffs last year. You know, he was kind of this controversial-ish like pick for even the Ryder Cup team as like a top 12 American. And he's 7 years removed from that iconic year when he was like in the prime. And then again, the Rory case we all have, where there was a 3-year stretch where he won 4 major championships and he was absolutely unstoppable. He hasn't won a major since August of 2014. So I just was kind of thinking about when I saw the Spieth surgery of like, it's kind of nuts that these guys were the stars of the game at very young ages, and we really haven't seen many majors from them since, or any outside of JT's.
Yeah, not majors, but that I kind of thought you were going a different direction there with Rory, because I feel like Rory has never stopped winning. Yeah, and that's one thing, you know. And he's given himself, obviously he hasn't gotten it done in the majors, but he's given himself so many chances. I think those guys going into struggle, you know, it's all relative, but struggles in their early 30s as they start a family and they don't win as much, makes Rory's consistency that much more impressive, especially given everything that's gone on in his life, which has just been a never-ending headline cycle. I think for him to win, you know, he's basically won 3 times a year, every single year, for a really, really long time. So it's very impressive. But, you know, there was a stat that I heard watching the Olympics that really fucked me up that I think is somewhat applicable here, which is, I don't know if we talked about this. Michael Phelps has no world records anymore. None.
Yeah, everyone's just getting better.
Everyone's just getting better. It's crazy how fast it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like that really shocks me, because it wasn't that long ago.
That's stunning information.
It was 2 Olympics ago, and he was the GOAT by far, and he had all of these records, and he would have finished like 4th or 5th, I think, in like his events if he was. I mean, obviously he wouldn't have, because he would have had the same, you know, nutrition and the same. But just the younger you are, it just seems like the better you are at sports, and that never was the case in golf. But there's still guys like. But Rory's the oldest guy in the top 10 by about 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Rahm is 30, Bryson's 30, Cantlay's 32, Hovland's like 27, Collins 27, Aberg's 25.
But I guess my point wasn't that they haven't won them in the last 3 or 4 years since they started having kids. It's been 7 to 10 years where there's no, you know what I'm saying? Like that stretch.
Yeah. They
like
had they had years in their 20s.
That's what I'm saying. Where like where they really cooled off, and I thought that was so incredibly fascinating to look at those three because I still view them as like the bigger stars in the game. Like those are the groups at any given tournament that people want to watch. They want to watch Spieth, JT, Rory's groups, and like what is it that at a young age you're able to, is it fearlessness in majors that you're just out there ripping? Is it you're drilling putts in the back of the hole? Because by all accounts, Rory is a great example of like, you're right. Don't get me wrong. He has continued to deliver. He's won massive events. He's won at a huge clip. He's won multiple FedEx Cup. He's delivered in Ryder Cups. Like he's been phenomenal, but like just can't quite get it done in the majors. And I kind of just wonder, like, what is it at that younger age where these guys were young when they were winning majors? They were like under 25 and like ripping through majors, and they can't quite get over the hump. Since JT, obviously, a couple years ago, won at Southern Hills. I get that. But at the clip that you would have thought from his 2017 year, it's like, if we were looking 7 years later, he would have only won one major since then. You'd be stunned. If you look at Jordan Spieth's trajectory from 2015 through 2017, and then you said 7 years later, he's got 0 majors, and he's only like, that would stun you in that moment. And then obviously Rory over the last decade, stunning, but he's been right there. So when I saw the Spieth having surgery thing, I was just like, man, it's stunning that these guys haven't locked up a bunch of majors. But then you look and like, well, yeah, dude, fucking Scotty Scheffler exists, and John Rahm exists, and Xander Schauffele exists. And like, these guys just exist and go out and win massive events. Like it's not easy.
It's definitely, I mean, it's definitely not easy, but you're right though about like the star situation. I'm looking at the President's Cup standings right now, which Salih Theegala is going to make it, which I think is going to be awesome. Seeing him represent the U.S. Awesome. He's such an electric personality. Kind of been a guy that you've been like, got to get him on a Ryder Cup team, but it's hard. You got to play well. He's played well this year. But I'm looking at the guys. So Russell Henley's 8th, Brian Harman. So Justin Thomas is 14th, and you got Russell Henley 8th, Max Homa 9th, Brian Harman 10th, Akshay 11th, Chris Kirk 12th, Sam Burns 13th. Then after JT, Eric Cole is 15th, Tom Hoagie, Keegan, JT Poston, Cam Young, Denny McCarthy, Davis Thompson, Billy Horschel, Taylor Moore, Harris English, and then in 25th, you have Jordan Spieth.
It's wild.
It's wild. It's wild. He's not that old, dude. He's really not that old.
31. He's 31.
He's 31. That is like
2 years ago. Right? Like him and JT were one of like the teams at the President's Cup in Charlotte.
Yeah.
They were sick. They were like the guys. They're unbeatable. It's great. And so, yeah.
We made those shirts.
Those were a long time ago. Those were many years ago, I think.
Thomas Spieth?
Yeah, I think that might have been more than 2 years ago.
That was, I remember it well. It was like my first week on the job.
Wow. Oh, you know what? I was thinking of the shirts, I think it was Reed and Spieth shirts that we made. Like
no, we made the Thomas Spieth, the Reagan Bush ones, and we got it C&D fast.
That's right, really quickly. But yeah, what it's just very interesting. I don't know, looking at those guys, and those are some of our key stars. So obviously rooting for them. If Spieth's got a wrist thing, that is devastating. But anyways, moving on. Last thing I want to say just about the entire Bandon trip that I forgot to say last time. Get asked this a ton. My guy James Odie is my caddy recommendation. He's been on the bag for me a couple trips there now, and he's just everything you want. He's funny. He's chill. He goes with the flow. He's seen a lot. So James Odie, if you go to Bandon, highly recommend him. He's a fantastic guy. North Carolina, about to get absolutely smoked by a hurricane.
Golf tournament there this week. See how many holes they play.
Supposed to be a golf tournament. That's actually one of my closest to the pin. I brought closest to the pin this week, and I've done a pretty interesting one when it comes to how many holes they're going to play. So we can roll into closest to if you guys would like at this point.
Yeah, let's do it.
Bushman, show yourself.
Sup?
There he is.
Saw it,
dude.
Okay.
You want a little update from last week?
A little update would be nice, Bushman.
Riggsy missed it. Got some points. So last week, first question was Tommy Fleetwood's finish at the Olympics.
Oh, man.
Second. So Trent actually said gold, and everyone else was sixth or worse. So And another point for Trent. He was actually pretty damn close to getting 2 there.
Tommy Fleetwood has had 2 major solo seconds and an Olympic gold solo second.
Woo.
Or Olympic gold solo second, also just known as Olympic silver.
Olympic gold second.
Hell yeah.
Okay, second was combined points in the Hall of Fame game, which actually got rained out. I don't know if you saw. So there were 38 points and I had 40. So I took
What do you
that
got
one.
rained out?
Dude, they like suspended it at the end. They
just
said,
called the
like,
game
the
after,
game's
like,
over.
We're cursed, dude. The curse continues.
I mean, it's a preseason.
It's
They
kinda
didn't
wild,
finish the
though.
game. We said
Yeah,
how
but
many points in the game. They fucking
If
cut it
that's
off.
our
When
curse,
does that
that's
happen?
fine.
Fine for you.
Preseason game getting rained out, not like Scotty Scheffler getting arrested. It's a little
Something
different.
weird happens every week with one of the questions.
I will definitely agree with that. Okay, third question was points for KD against Puerto Rico on Saturday, which was actually the Anthony Edwards show. So he pretty much stopped shooting after the third quarter. He finished with 11. Dan had 16, so Dan took that one. And then the last one was Collins' round 2 score, which was 68. Dan and I got it right on.
Ding.
Wow.
Cha-ching.
Colin's a name I should have mentioned earlier too, just as one of the guys that now is just winning majors, so it's not that easy for those other guys.
Okay, Trent has a 10-point lead. Trent's got 49. I have 39. Dan has 37. Frankie 35. Riggs 34. So we got
devastating.
We got a chance here. We got a chance here to get some points on Trent. I think we should do 4 2-point questions.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Yes or no's?
4 yes or no.
Yes or no's
Or just 4
that
like
we already know.
there's only one. Right. Will the sun come up tomorrow?
Will the sun go up to go
What
down?
do you guys think? What do you guys think? Okay. My first closest to the pin question. What will the total holes played be by the Wyndham Championship winner?
Huh.
So,
Ooh, what's his weather forecast look like?
oh, horrific. It's going to be, there's a hurricane hitting right now. Like it's
Yeah,
going to
just
rain.
like day,
Right,
just
and they
day-wise.
can't Monday finish really because the playoffs start next week.
And so, do they call it early? If they do, is it after 2 rounds, 3 rounds? If they do play all 4 rounds, does it go to a playoff? So you gotta factor everything in.
It's a good question. It's a good
What will the
closest to the pin question.
Total holes played be by the Wyndham Championship winner.
I feel like that course too. Like I feel like I don't know how it drains, but for some reason I just think of like it's not going to drain very well. I feel like it's going to be completely soaked.
Oh my God, this is hilarious. Okay, Riggs 54, Dan 55,
Yes, one
Alex,
whole playoff of a 3-round
72. I knew you guys would just not be anywhere near there.
Wow.
I think
Look
that
at
was
that.
a smart play.
Interesting. All right. Okay, next one. This is sort of related, and I've been hawking this weather because I'm supposed to go to North Carolina. I'm supposed to fly there Thursday and then play a little bit of golf before flying up to Boston for the Barstool Classics on Monday, Tuesday. I'm going down, playing a couple rounds, checking on the house, the whole thing. So I've been scouring it, and it's just torrential rainfall. Anytime you see the word torrential rainfall, that's not good.
Yeah, no bueno.
I was going to try to do what will the rainfall be in Myrtle Beach because they were getting hit pretty hard, and we love Myrtle Beach. We have a connection there. But that's already pretty much going to have passed by the time this comes out and everything. So then I looked at the trajectory of this Debby hurricane, tropical storm Debby, and it's going to hit Thursday and Friday. It's going to kind of go through Richmond, Virginia. So on Friday, what will the 24-hour total rainfall be in Richmond, Virginia on Friday?
I don't even know where to start.
You got to do. We'll do the 2 decimals.
What
the
2 decimal? Well,
inches.
I did 1 decimal, so my second decimal
Put
is
a
0.
0
I
at the
suppose.
end. Yeah. It's a 0.
Yes.
I don't know what a good number is. I'm used to snowfall. All right. I hope this isn't crazy off. All right. Dan, 4.3 inches. Riggs, 3.78. Alex, 3.1.
Okay.
Solid guesses.
I was just
Good
hoping
spot
I
for
wasn't
Alex.
like
I think it's a good
so
spot for
far
Alex.
off from you guys because I had no idea where I was going there.
All right. Third one. Monday's Barstool Classic and Tuesday is at TPC Boston. Monday, we have an afternoon start. It's like 1:30 start or something like that. What will the highest team score be in the Barstool Classic? Highest team score.
I have no. So I have a few questions here.
Mhm.
I know there's like sponsor teams that play. They're not included in the leaderboard? They just
No, because they're not included in the leaderboard. They usually just play a scramble and they fuck around and they're happy to be there.
okay.
So there'll probably be 48 teams or something that have official registered scores. And so I'll make sure I go over to T-Ray and Mancini at the end. And I'll say I need, because they do official scoring. I say I need the highest team score that was recorded this week.
I'm still mad about that. Alan, by the way, has got the Barstool Classic towel on his bag. I'm still mad about that one shot L.
One shot out.
Missed it by one.
Me and my dad are gonna win next week.
Oh yeah, that's coming up.
2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there now. I'm going to that one.
Arondacoit, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. You said it right. Thank you.
I've got a 12-day road trip coming up.
Don't forget about my personal history with Arondacoit as well.
I know.
Well,
I just know when Frankie comes on, he always says it wrong. He's like, I feel like you were just saying it wrong. I'm like, no, I've just lived there my whole life.
That's great. That's great.
What does he say?
He says, Irandiquois, I think. And I'm like,
Irandiquois. He turned it from Native American to French.
Yeah.
All right, last one. This one's interesting.
Hold on.
Oh, we didn't read them yet?
Yep. Dan
forgot about that part.
7.
I fucked up. So do people shoot like? Sorry.
Do we know what the par is? Because Riggs and I did like score.
We can figure that out. But
okay, I'll figure it out. So +7.
It's an easy translation.
I'm guessing 79 or something. Riggs 87. Dan or Alex 89.
Do people shoot those scores? I mean,
people play horrible, Dan. People show up and they're not really that into the golf. I mean, they're very into the golf, but I mean, they're not like really expecting to qualify, but a little bit. And then they start with like double, and then they start just drinking. They don't care at that point, and they could shoot some high scores. But that might be too high. I don't know. I don't usually look at the bottom of the leaderboard, so I'm really not sure, to be honest.
Yeah.
You might be all right there, Dan.
I'm counting on you, Boston people. Keep it together this week.
Last one, and it took me like an hour to come up with closest to the pin because I really wanted to get some creative ones this week. Nike's stock price is currently, I'm looking at it in real time, $72.71. It has dropped in the this year. It's down about 33%, and about over the last 2 years, it's pretty much been cut in half. A couple weeks ago, I bought some Nike stock. I listened to a couple market podcasts. Not that I'm some wizard or anything. But Nike's one of the strongest brands in the history of the world. They go through ebbs and flows. I just kind of figured over the long term, I'm more of a buy and just hold for years and years and years. I'm going to buy a little bit of Nike because I believe in that stock. $72.65 right now. Obviously, it changes quickly in real time. Friday at closing bell, what will Nike's stock price be in KE on the market?
It's kind of amazing how much Nike has a little bit ebbs and flows, has a little bit fumbled the bag in recent years. I feel like they've lost so much ground to like even New Balance and like
Hoka.
Even like Hoka. Hoka's massive. And then in the golf space, like obviously Peter Millar, but then there's also, there's like Roback that's really big with the polo. Like I just remember when I was a kid, it was like I used to wear Nike clothes for Tiger because Tiger wore them.
Yeah, and you think like even the golf shoes, dude. Like I remember, like everybody had
G4,
kind of a pair of the Tigers, and now like G4 is all over the place and some other companies. But
even FootJoy's like got some more juice, I feel like, than Nike does.
Just in golf, yeah. But
yeah,
market was crushed on Friday, and then Monday it's bounced back a little bit the last couple of days.
Dan 74.49, Riggs 74.66, Alex 73.69.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm rooting for high, obviously.
Who's running Nike these days? Is Phil Knight still?
I don't believe it's Phil Knight. It's a good question.
Still is like the iconic brand. I feel like. I mean, it's still,
dude. It's a top 10 most iconic brands in the history of the world.
It's in like the Apple tier.
John Donahue.
Donahue.
It's swoosh. The swoosh. I mean, it's incredible. That's why I bought. So I fucking bought it. It's like, let's go. We're talking about Nike here. All right. That is closest to the pin. How about I saw this, Dan? This creeped me out. AP posted it. They got drones flying around New York warning people about the weather.
What do you mean? Being like it's going to storm?
Dude, there's a video of a drone over this neighborhood that somebody took with their cell phone, and it's on like a loudspeaker. It's announcing to everyone, severe flood warning incoming. If you live in a basement or a first floor residence, be prepared to have to evacuate if necessary. We will keep you informed with updates. Flying around like we're in Big Brother. It was unbelievable when I saw this thing.
Why can't they just do those like text alerts?
I don't know. It's a good question.
You know what I'm saying? Like an Amber Alert where it goes out to everyone. We have these things in California. Someone pointed them out to me the other day. They're like tsunami alarms kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So like if you look on telephone poles, some of them will have basically megaphones. And if there's a tsunami that is coming, they will all go off so that everyone can like run home. Because with a tsunami, they can give you like 2 or 3 hours of notice. That was one of the big reasons why it was so destructive. The one in Indonesia is because they didn't have that technology. So like no one really knew it was coming. And then it's like, oh shit, there's the wave. So that we would have a little bit of a warning.
We have huge tornado sirens in the Midwest. Huge.
Yeah.
And so
that's a big thing.
Yeah. I mean, now it's probably that's less because phones. But in the Midwest, there's tornadoes all the time. So if there's a tornado watch meant that conditions were ripe for tornadoes. So be careful. Tornado warning meant a tornado has been recorded as having touched down, and the sirens would go off, and you would know that you need to go down into your basement and you need to sit up against the side of a wall where shattered glass from a tornado wouldn't shard you to death. And that was pretty much, we would practice it. And then the tornado warning, the tornado drill, I guess not even a drill, just they would test the sirens, would be like whatever the first Monday or something of every month, and so you knew those sirens. So that was just like business as usual. Those sirens went off.
Speaking of the Midwest and St. Louis, obviously I was heartbroken to see Corey Bush lost her race last night. Mm-hmm. But I was reading stuff about they were not very nice about downtown St. Louis. They said that St. Louis, the crime is super high and it's boarded storefronts everywhere. Is it really that bad?
From what I understand, horrific. I don't, we're from like classic suburbia. So 30 minutes outside of downtown. Did
you go downtown when you were a kid? Was that a thing?
Blues games.
Yeah.
We would go downtown. That was pretty much it. You kind of stay out in your bubble. We would, like all the hockey games that we played, we would just drive to and play against the other townships and the other like suburban towns and stuff. So the only time we would ever go downtown would be to go to Blues games. And it was, I remember my old man being like pretty cautious, but it wasn't considered wildly dangerous, where I think now the way people talk about it and everything gets sensationalized. So who knows? But like, I think it's considered, people don't really go down there to a lot of parts of St. Louis because it's incredibly dangerous. And I also think, again, this gets sensationalized, that like St. Louis was hit very hard by all of the police and
Ferguson,
police and justice, Ferguson, a lot of that, started in the St. Louis area. And so there's not, from what I understand, I don't live down there. I haven't been down there in years, but from what I understand, there's just not much of a police presence either. So people don't feel that safe, and, ill-doing folks, I think, feel like they have a little bit more of a free reign. And so, from what I understand, downtown St. Louis, not good. And also, like, East St. Louis, which is right across the river, has been known for decades and decades as, one of the worst, like, kind of ghettos in the country. That's where, like, I think it outranked Detroit for years and years and years. That's where Nelly and the St. Lunatics are from. Like, East St. Louis is not known as very, very good, safe spot overall. So, again, it's easy for me to just kind of sit here and say, because I haven't spent much time in East St. Louis or downtown St. Louis, but I am from that area, 30 minutes away. And from what I understand, not good right now. Not good at all.
Yeah. I just saw that. I just wanted to ask if that was true.
No, it's pretty known as being true, but I haven't been there, so hard for me to judge. All right. I think that is all that I brought to the table. What an interview from Keegan. Love that guy. He's the best. I might have another airport experience where I'm at the airport all day. It might go fine. I think I'm almost more worried. I'm supposed to fly to Charlotte and then drive a couple hours to Pinehurst, check on the old pad. I'm almost more worried about the drive. Seeing like flash
with the rain,
flood,
you're saying?
Flash flood warnings all over, and like I don't want to get wiped off the road. That's like, airplane, I feel pretty safe. They'll figure it out. But you get wiped off the road by
driving in that stuff is scary. When you have to pull over to the side.
Oh God, it's awful. So yeah, we'll see how that goes, but hopefully it goes well. And then boom, I'll be at Boston stop, and then Rochester stop. Hopefully Alex Bush is supposed to be, we're taking us to a place called Thirsties on the Sunday night before the Barstool Classic in Rochester. That'll be a week from Sunday night. That's supposed to be like the spot in town.
That's the spot.
I heard, I was like talking to our Classic boys, and they're like, yeah, we're doing a happy hour on Sunday night. This place called Thirsties, if you can get in town before. And I said, I will not miss an event at a place called Thirsties. I'll be there.
Riggs, have I told you about the garbage plate in Rochester before?
I had one.
Yep.
So right next to Thirsties, owned by the same people as Hungry's, and you get garbage plates. I remember in 2013, I went to Thirsties, and Duffner was sitting at the bar at Thirsties and ordered a plate to be delivered to him at the bar, just sitting there by himself. So
yeah,
we'll
you guys
hit that.
I love you guys. Keep it real simple up there. You got Thirsties, Hungry's.
It's so very, very simple.
I like that. No, look, we had a great time in Rochester last year. Huge golf community up there. Nice people, garbage plates. So I'm excited to be there. All right. Big thanks to Keegan joining the show. Thanks to everybody who listened. As always, have a very safe weekend, especially folks in the hurricane tropical storm sort of pathway here. And then we'll be back next week on Tuesday. Hit it hard.
Hit it hard.